Call the Planning Commission, the April 2nd, 2025 Planning Commission to order. With the absence of the mayor and the vice president, I will entertain a motion to make me the chair to officiate this meeting. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to make Mike Woolsey the interim chair of this meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's get to the first part of our agenda, and that is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Becky, roll call, please.
Holtcamp,
Here.
Gormanson,
Here.
Moody, Odine, Prendergast, here, Woolsey.
Here. The first item, actionable item, is the approval of the minutes from January 7th, 2025. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is public comments. This is an opportunity for people in the audience to step forward and come forward with any comments to this commission. I will note that there is a public hearing after this item here that is related to the second item on our agenda. So you can come forward here at this time, or we can you can speak to that item when it comes up. So if anybody in the audience wishes to speak, please step forward. Going once. Okay, no one's stepping forward now, so we will move on to ordinances and resolutions. There is a public hearing for the second item on the agenda here. And we've got Harley is going to give us a presentation related to that.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. Harley Melhorn, Senior Planner. The first item before you tonight is Sycamore 2 Planned Unit Development General Development Plan. That is a mouthful. A request for GDP approval for a new 24-unit senior living memory care facility and 8 units of independent living villas. The GDP is the first step in the PUD process and establishes the basic right of use and conceptual site design and architecture for a project. And if approved, development is subject to the specific implementation plan's substantial conformance to the GDP. The proposed project is located south of Broadway, bounded by Sycamore and Orange to the west and east, and by Foster to the south. Outlined in blue is the project boundaries. The proposed development consists of 5 single-story buildings, a 17,000 square foot memory care facility, and 4 2-unit independent living rental villas. Noticeable on the plan is the lack of a label for Charlotte Street. This is because as a part of the proposed development, Charlotte Street will need to be discontinued in favor of the developer. This specific request is not a part of the action before this commission tonight, but will be initiated by City Council on April 22nd. And all approvals herein are to be contingent upon such discontinuance. That's including both the GDP and the SIP. Parking for the memory care facility will be provided on the Charlotte Street alignment, which is the new private drive. Parking for the independent living units will be provided by a covered parking garage space for each unit plus a tandem space on the driveway. There are 2 requested deviations as a part of this PUD. A minor deviation regarding the size of the parking stalls, that being a reduction from the required depth of 20 feet to 18 feet, and a setback reduction. The requested setback reduction would be for Sycamore, Orange, and Foster. And the reduced setback, which is 10 feet, would range from a 5 to a 10-foot deviation depending on the side. Staff finds these requests reasonable in exchange for the much-needed niche housing and care units, the public improvements to infrastructure, which include the new sidewalk on the north side of Broadway, and the contribution to the future Foster connection by the developer. The proposed architecture features a unified style and a use of high-quality finishing materials with architectural embellishments. All proposed buildings are single-story, and staff finds that the proposed architecture is consistent with the quality and style contemplated by code, the comp plan, and surrounding character. When considering an application for a planned unit development, City Code requires the proposal to meet certain criteria, those being community benefit, character and intensity of land use, economic impact, engineering design standards, preservation and maintenance of open space, and consistency with the comp plan and official map. Staff has reviewed the proposal and found it to be consistent with the criteria. A more detailed analysis can be found within the staff memorandum. The next step for the general development plan application is to go before the City Council on April 22nd. If the GDP is approved, an SIP application will be submitted by the applicant and will be presented to the Plan Commission and Council. The GDP and SIP being approved is a requirement for a planned unit development's final approval. Finding conformance with code criteria and the comprehensive plan, staff recommends the Plan Commission forward the enclosed council resolution approving the GDP for the site to the City Council with a favorable recommendation. With that, I'll defer back to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
So at this time, we are in a public hearing, so if anybody wanted to step forward and provide any comment on this particular project, we welcome that at this time. And no one's stepping forward, so at this time, do we have a motion to move this forward?
So moved.
Okay, so there,
Do you want me to read it out, or?
if you could. please.
Okay, sure. So I will make a motion to approve the ordinance regarding the, recommendation to move the planned unit development, general development plan at Orange and Sycamore Streets to the City Council, or for the City Board.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is an ordinance regarding the annexation of the property at 53 Woodridge Street and 555 Powell Avenue. And Harley returns.
That I do. As the chair said, the next item is an annexation petition. An annexation petition is a change. Oh, sorry. Wrong script. The next item is an annexation petition. Change in future land use and proposed rezoning for property located north of Powell Avenue between Woodridge and Oak Ridge Drives. An annexation petition is a request from a landowner to become part of the city of River Falls. The Plan Commission's role in annexations is to provide a recommendation to City Council on the land use and zoning aspects of the proposed annexation, and to confirm that the proposed annexation area is contiguous to the city boundary and recommend a zoning classification that is consistent with the comp plan, should the area be annexed into the city. The Plan Commission is not reviewing any specific development proposals at this time. If the annexation is approved, those applications would be forthcoming. A unanimous petition requesting annexation from the town of Troy to the city of River Falls has been submitted by Rolling Hills Development for one full parcel and a portion of two parcels totaling approximately 7.28 acres adjacent to Powell Avenue. I'd just like to spend a little bit of time to clarify what is being annexed in this case. It is just the polygon outlined in blue on the screen. This annexation will not in any way go past into Woodridge or Oak Ridge Drive. It is terminating as shown on screen approximately. So that is the current area being annexed. City Code lists items that should be considered when an annexation petition is received. Is the location contiguous with the city boundary, and is the current or proposed land use of the area compatible with adjacent land uses? If the area is annexed to the city, an appropriate zoning district should be applied. In determining which zoning district is most appropriate, we review the city comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, and adjacent land uses. As for the first consideration, the image on screen illustrates the annexation's abutment to Powell Avenue, the south side of which is City of River Falls right-of-way. Thus, it is contiguous with the City of River Falls on at least one boundary. As for the second consideration, as illustrated in the graphic, the proposed site, which is to be annexed as a residentially zoned property, is entirely surrounded by existing residential. The proposed future land use classification is consistent with the current future land use, going from UAB, urban area boundary, medium density residential, to medium density residential within the city. The proposed zoning for such a classification is R2 to be consistent, which is R2, medium density residential. In summary, the proposed annexation area is contiguous with city boundaries. A change in future land use classification from UAB medium density to medium density residential within the city is compatible with the surrounding area and will allow for efficient development of the property. A corresponding zoning classification of R2, multiple family medium density residence district, would align with the goals of the comprehensive plan. And residential uses on the property are anticipated to be compatible with surrounding land uses. Thus, staff recommends a change in the future land use classification, application of the zoning classification of R2, and that the annexation petition be forwarded to the City Council with a favorable recommendation. With that, I conclude my presentation, and I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Harley. Do I have here a motion for an ordinance annexing certain territory of the town of Troy to the city of River Falls with regard to this presentation? Motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion and a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? I was going to say that I think that this presentation, you've outlined the reasons why this is acceptable to move forward with this, and I think I'm voting in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It may be well just to maybe ask if anybody in the audience, even though it's not a public hearing, it's a public meeting, to see if anybody has any comments.
Sure. Would anybody like to speak about this? I know there has been concern in the community with regard to this application and what it entails and what it includes and what it doesn't include. And I hope that this, has brought forth, some dimension as to what it is for folks. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mary McNamara, and my husband.
Excuse me, Mary. Where do you live?
Yeah, we live at 92A West.
Okay.
So that's way at the north end of where east and west come together,
Mhm.
pretty much.
Okay.
So we're pretty far from, that proposed site. And my husband and I moved in there about 2.5 years ago. So we do really love the area as it is. And I spoke with Harley a little bit before the meeting started, and he explained to me that it is privately owned, so, they do have the right to develop it. And his position, or the River Falls, is just to make sure that it's developed consistent with, the surrounding area. And some other neighbors of ours who were not able to be here tonight at tonight's meeting because they're out of town, Doug and Cheryl Hoffman, they're at 97 East. So pretty way back at the end of the north end of the East Woodridge. She had some concerns about like spring, water melt and runoff. If, if our East Woodridge, any of our East Woodridge homes would be affected based on, how it's going to be developed. And I guess, from my husband's standpoint, we like seeing the nature that's there, but obviously it's privately owned, so we realize that they have a right to develop. So
Right.
I guess that's about all I really have to say.
And I think we're at a stage right now where there isn't any particular development plan that we can point to that would be down the road that we would be able to address those specific questions, correct? Yeah.
So there's no plans to develop it in the near future?
Right, there's no specific plan.
Specific,
Yeah,
okay.
right.
But it is
Right.
owned by that Rolling Hills.
Yes.
It's likely that a development application will be forthcoming in the near future, but this particular request doesn't contain, by design, any sort of specific site plan or density or anything. Just whatever is proposed will have to be consistent with the zoning classification that council would apply if annexed.
Okay, I understand. All right, yeah, I think that that makes it clear to me
Okay.
where we're at.
Well, thank you for coming forward with your concern.
Thank you.
One thing to add to this, though, is this is an R2, so there's a little bit more density that's there, and I keep in the back of my mind thinking about the housing survey that we've done and what we need to do with, you know, improving our housing stock as well. So we're trying to balance all those things. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the fourth item is reports from Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Plan Commission. I'm Emily Shively. I'm the Assistant Director of Community Development for the City of River Falls. And this evening, for the planning update, I get to share with you the 2024 Community Development Department Annual Report. So what we had been doing last year, and the Plan Commission was involved in a number of those things, and then talk about our 2025 major projects. So I also want to thank Becky. She did all of the layout and worked with the graphics and images on this and made it look really good. So thank you, Becky. So a lot of our work is guided by the City Council's strategic initiatives. So they adopt strategic initiatives over a 2-year period to guide the work of the departments in the city. And so the strategic initiatives we've been working with were for 2023 through 2025. And they fall into kind of 4 major areas. And those are connected community, economic vitality, financial sustainability, and quality municipal services. So under those big headers, we have specific work that we're doing. And so the complete list of strategic initiatives is here. And also, if you want to look at this afterwards, it's on the Community Development Department website on the city webpage. So the items that have an asterisk by them were things that the Community Development Department was either leading or assisting. And I'll get into the details of those as we go. Our work is also guided by the city's vision, mission, and values. So our vision is a distinct, vibrant, and safe community with an abundance of nature and easy access to metropolitan amenities, a place where families, students, and businesses flourish. Our mission is to coordinate and deliver essential services and ensure a sustainable future. And then our values are to put people first, pursue excellence, act with integrity, embrace change, serve our community, and consider future generations. So we're taking all of this into consideration as we're working through those strategic initiatives. So this is a message from our director, Amy Peterson, and talking about kind of the highlights from 2024. So significant progress on infrastructure projects, some of our major projects being the Kinney Corridor Plan, which is what that graphic is, working towards a more connected community with Wasson Lane reconstruction, and then the Man Valley Corporate Park, progress on that. So I'm going to dive into the details on some of those major projects. First is the Man Valley Corporate Park, and this is an image from the ribbon cutting this past fall, because that was marking the completion of our infrastructure installation at the Man Valley Corporate Park. And that infrastructure included 4.5 miles of water main, 2.5 miles of sanitary sewer, almost a mile of storm sewer, 35,000 cubic yards of earthwork, 3,900 feet of roadway construction, and 2 miles of utility maintenance multi-use path, which we'll also touch on a little bit later too. So it's a big project, and it's been, in the works for a long time. So this was a major accomplishment to get that piece completed. Another major project is the Kinney Corridor. So in 2018, the city completed the Kinney Corridor Plan, which envisioned a free-flowing Kinnickinnic River. And so in early 2023, we entered into a partnership with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to think about how we could actually accomplish the vision in that plan. And so we have been working with them on a feasibility study to see what it would take to remove both dams that are currently on the river and restore the ecosystems along the stretch that's been impacted by the dams. It's an expensive project, as you can imagine, and the federal authorization for that project has a limit as to how much money the Army Corps can spend on any particular project. And that limit was set at $10 million. The project came in at about twice that. And so even though we thought the feasibility study would be done last year, when it came up with that number, we had to hit pause. And so what we did at that point is the Army Corps pursued 3 internal waivers that would allow them to proceed with the project above and beyond that $10 million. They were able to get all 3 of those signed off at kind of the local level, the regional level, and the national level by the Assistant Secretary of the Army. Said, yes, this project is worth going ahead with a slightly more expensive project than we would typically do. Another thing that we did is we worked with Congress and our legislators to raise that cap, because that $2 million had been in place since the early 2000s. And with inflation and everything else, it was seen as reasonable to change that cap as well. So that went from $10 million to $15 million, and that was approved in January of 2025. So the other piece of it is, now we started this study in 2023. It's now 2025. Things have gotten more expensive. So that initial cost estimate has also changed. But we have made progress towards making this an actually a feasible project. And with that demonstrated support from Congress and the Army Corps, I think is really positive. Second thing that came with the Kinney Corridor is last year we applied for technical assistance grant from the National Park Service. They have a group called the Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. And that group works with communities outside of national parks to do outdoor recreation. And so the Army Corps piece of fulfilling the vision of the Kinney Corridor plan would be the removal of the dams, restoration of the river, but it wouldn't include any of the recreation and access to the river that the Kinney Corridor plan envisions. So partnering with the National Park Service, our TCA program, they are helping us develop that river access recreation plan. And that work is typically for a year that they provide that free technical assistance, working with landscape architects and planners. And they have indicated to us that they would like to work with us for a second year as well. So again, demonstrating that this is a really exciting, unique project that is getting a lot of support. So working on some of the technical pieces, but also bringing in that recreation so that if we're able to move forward, we've got all of those pieces working together. And then South Watson Lane. So that was a major project that we submitted the grant for in 2019. So 5 years ago, and then the project was finally completed last year. So some people wonder why things take a long time, or they think things are just happening super quickly, but it takes a lot of time. So we submitted the application to the State Surface Transportation Program. And so they helped us be able to do this project because it was a pretty significant and expensive project. So we started in 2024, and the highlight of that is the new roundabout at Wasson and Cascade. And I think that has significantly addressed safety issues that were happening at that intersection. We specifically heard feedback from the school district bus drivers that that was a particularly tricky intersection for them. And it's vastly improved now. So in addition to that, there was new stormwater improvements. The whole road has curb and gutter. And then there was repaving of both the trail and South Wasson and new street lighting. So if you've been down there, it's kind of a transformation in that stretch. More trails. So this is back to the picture on the left is the Man Valley Trail. And so that one included new street lighting, benches, so places to kind of hop off the trail, rest, take a break. And that's a nearly 2-mile trail. We also did a new trail near the Oak Hill development. So if Plan Commission remembers, when we annexed that area, some town residents were concerned about a road being connected there, and that more traffic coming off of the new city road might impact pedestrian safety on 879th between the new development and Bob White. And so we were able to put in a new paved off-street trail along that section. Also up in the Thompson Heights development where the Current was constructed, we have a trail connecting those 4 buildings, that 105 units, to the trail on Paulson Road that then gets you to Sterling Ponds and then gets you all the way to downtown. And then we also repaved the trail along Powell from Apollo to Collins Park. So a lot of trail improvements throughout the city. And another exciting piece in terms of trails and outdoor recreation was the acquisition of this Fox property easement. And so this area is just northwest of where the annexation area that we heard about tonight is. So what you can see kind of in the upper image is the north part of that horseshoe that the resident was speaking, that she lives kind of up in that area. So the Fox family owns property to the north of there. And this area that's kind of shown on the red are steep slopes that aren't appropriate for development. But this was initiated because we wanted to actually connect the Whitetail Ridge Trails down to Tattersall. And so we needed just a small easement from them, at least, right here, to get from Whitetail down to the Paulson Road retail area. So as we were talking about making that connection, the family basically volunteered this additional area and said, we think mountain biking is great. We think that the outdoor resources in River Falls are amazing, and we would like our property to be part of that system. And so we were able to acquire more than 50 acres of additional area for trails. And so next Tuesday at City Council, they will be considering an amendment to our memorandum of understanding with the Kinney Off-Road Cyclists, who currently maintain the trails at Whitetail, to allow them to come into this area and start to develop trails through here as well. So it was the generosity of the Fox family, and they're willing to partner with us, that's created this kind of amazing recreation opportunity for the city. And then housing, and this is where the Plan Commission's been much more engaged, quite specifically. So 102 new homes were permitted in neighborhoods throughout the city, including Highview Meadows, Sterling Ponds, Thompson Heights, Oak Hill, and there was that additional home that was permitted in the Eco Village that Plan Commission helped to make that outlot into a buildable lot for a new home. And then we had several new neighborhoods that got partial approval. So Brook Green actually did finally complete their approvals towards the end of 2024. That's the area just across from the current in Thompson Heights. And that's going to be a 100-unit rental townhome development. And if you've been on Paulson Road recently, you've seen their clubhouse is actually up out of the ground, has a roof on it, and the foundation is ready for one of their first residential buildings. Red's Place, supportive housing and single family neighborhood. We are getting closer to getting a final plat for that. All of their other approvals have been granted. We're just working on some final engineering for that. And then Cecil River Falls was the 66-unit apartment building down by the Renaissance Academy. They are on hold for now. Right now, it's just financing is a little bit tricky. They need to move through their final phase of GDP or planned unit development approval for the SIP. So hopefully we'll see them back here in the not too distant future. And then commercial industrial, the Starbucks opened over a year ago on North Main. Little Adventures started construction on a new childcare facility in Sterling Ponds. They are zooming along with their construction up there. And then the Sterling Ponds industrial building was completed across the street from the St. Clair Valley Business Innovation Center. And that's 108,000 square feet of multi-tenant industrial. We also work on permits and code enforcement. So we have ordinances. We want to make sure that people are understanding the reasons that we have some of these regulations to express the community's values. And then also make sure that things are built to code. So we have a list here of our planning and building permits for 2024, and then code compliance, which includes building permit inspections. And then funding. So we have these great ideas and things that we want to do, and we're not able to sometimes, fund that all within the resources that the city has. So working with other partners to make those visions a reality. So in 2024, we were successful in obtaining over $250,000 in grants, and that includes the estimated value of our partnership with the National Park Service, which we aren't paying any money for, but if we had to, that would be around $50,000 worth of consulting services. We received $200,000 for a Safe Streets for All planning grant. So we are just getting underway with that. It's to develop a Safe Streets Action Plan looking at safety of all of our roadway and transportation systems within the city. So we did a lot of that analysis for the bicycle and pedestrian plan as part of the comprehensive plan. But this is looking at it at an even broader perspective citywide and where we can make safety enhancements to make sure that we are reducing serious injuries and fatalities in our transportation system. We received around $9,000 for a Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant, and that was to look at the watershed around the Hoffman Basin area. So this is the area that drains into kind of the Hoffman Park area and then the neighborhoods further to the south because there's been historic flooding in those areas. So thinking about where we might need to make some upstream improvements to make sure that that infrastructure and people's homes are safe.
Thank you.
And then we also, yes. And then we also worked with the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation on a grant for Bodie Studios. And so this was the property on Walnut Street near downtown that was turned from a church into a yoga and wellness studio. And boards and commissions, we couldn't do it without you. So we have a number of citizen-led boards and commissions that community development supports. And we are always open to other folks in the city being interested. So if anyone is interested in serving in an advisory capacity, supporting the council, contact the mayor and let him know your interest. And then getting into what our boards and commissions did over 2024. So for Plan Commission, you recommended approval of 2 annexations that totaled almost 50 acres, adding to the city, approved 2 special use permits and 2 special sign permits, and then recommended approval of the final plat for the Oak Hill First Edition, which is the second phase of the Oak Hill neighborhood, and then a modification of the Man Valley Corporate Park plat. That was way back at the beginning of 2024. I remember back that far. Our business improvement district offers grants to businesses within that downtown area. So this is a picture of the Bodie Studios that benefited from our partnership with them on their loan application. And then the bid board also does all of the hanging baskets that you see downtown and the gardens on 2nd Street. Historic Preservation Commission worked on the library exhibit. So if you've been to the library in the lower level, this is, I think, their 2nd year that they've done a display there. I think this year they're going to need to pause on the display because of the construction that's happening at the library, but that's been a really successful partnership, putting on those educational displays. They've also worked on additional interpretive elements in the Glover Station School in DeSanctis Park, and then planning for upcoming historic anniversaries. So last year was the 150th anniversary of UVRF, and so wanting to recognize that. They also worked with the Wisconsin Historical Society to nominate 2 properties in River Falls for the National Register of Historic Places, and both of those were approved by the end of 2024. And those were the Jane Bernice Grimm House on 108 South 6th Street, and the, is it Rosius and Ingeborg Freeman? House at 220 South 4th Street. And then again, there's so many things that we couldn't do if we were not working in partnership with a number of different organizations, including educational organizations, organizations that partner with us on natural resource preservation and interpretation, our surrounding towns and counties, economic development corporations, state DNR, and Department of Transportation. So really pleased to have strong and successful partnerships that enable us to do even more. And I'll just leave it with this. This is a picture of our team as we ended 2024. And we have since started building out our Conservation and Parks division that was approved by council at the end of 2024. So we've brought on Brooks Ostendorf, who is the manager of that division, and then he will be bringing on a recreation coordinator and natural resource coordinator in 2025. So making even more resources on our team. Now we'll move into 2025. So again, we have those 4 big ideas, from the strategic initiatives, and then the specific projects that we're working on within those. And so again, the items that have an asterisk are the things that are directly on the council strategic initiatives. The other items are things that maybe weren't anticipated when those were adopted in 2023, but they have become opportunities that our team is working on. So for Connected Community, it's the Kinney Corridor. That is going to continue to be a priority for our team in partnership with a number of others. The Safe Streets Action Plan that I talked about that we're getting underway with our consultant and analyzing our transportation system right now. We're working on housing code amendments as part of the comp plan implementation. So in 2024, Harley gave a couple presentations on sort of where we're at with housing and the direction we're wanting to head. And then West Locust Street is a connection from near the yard waste site to the Oak Hill development. And so that's something that's a connection that's been on our official map that we're working towards what that will look like. For economic vitality, we finished phase 1 of Man Valley, which was that infrastructure. So now we're working with interested businesses who would like to locate in the park. So the goal is to have a first project groundbreaking out there. We're also gathering data on downtown in anticipation of a reconstruction project. So we are assessing the current status of our infrastructure. So everything from water, sewer, storm, pavement, electrical, what is the current state of things there? And once we gather that, it's thinking about, okay, if we're going to maintain our infrastructure and the vitality of our downtown, what improvements are going to be needed? What would that look like? So we're kind of scoping that out right now. And then the other piece that a number of things kind of fall under that we're dealing with at the Plan Commission is ensuring sustained development and redevelopment of the city from the prospect stage through construction. And so this is all of the work that is coming through our building and inspections department, things that our engineering team is working on. And all of these things are in the monthly report that we put in your packet. Under each of these headings, we give you detail as to how we're making progress on each of these. So in that section, you'll find how many building permits were issued, what the cumulative value, and all of that is. For financial sustainability, this is the year we are updating our capital improvement plan. And so these are infrastructure projects and equipment purchases throughout the city to, again, maintain our operations and our infrastructure. We're also always thinking about our grant strategy, because again, thinking about if we can partner to achieve something, then we put in a little, the partner puts in a little, we can do more. And then everything that we're continuing to do with economic development, and that has a lot to do with the partnerships that were listed. And then finally, quality municipal services. So in 2025, our team is assisting the library with their planned renovations. We're also assisting the team working on the fire station renovations and new construction. The Hoffman Basin study, which I had mentioned earlier to address potential issues with future flooding and current flooding in that neighborhood. We've gotten the recommendations, and now we're thinking about what projects might come out of that study. And then, as I mentioned too, the Conservation and Parks Division, rolling that out. Working with the University of Wisconsin-Madison to think about how we can design crosswalks on Division at our 2 regional parks that are on Division, at Hoffman and DeSanctis, because right now there's not a great safe crossing there. So that's a priority. And then our engineering team is also working on an urban non-point source pollution grant. So that's thinking about all of our stormwater. So non-point is it's not coming from one particular place, it's coming from all different directions. And how can we ensure good water quality on the Kinney and throughout the community? And then stewardship of public infrastructure is similar to the one, and the other one is a big bucket that things like mill and overlay projects fall into, or sidewalk infill, or any of these kinds of assessments of our infrastructure improvement as we go. So with that, I'll take any questions. And again, thank you for your work in helping accomplish the council's goals, which are the community's goals.
So I'm guessing this will come out from the Safe Streets for All plan, but is there any thought to East Cascade between the new roundabout at Wasson? Because there's a lot of students that live on that north side and can't get across the street, and there's no sidewalk on the north side to get them to a safe crossing point. So they just take their lives in their hands and step out and meet Jesus. So that, I think, should be right at the top of any sort of safe routes planning.
Yep, I do think that was highlighted in our bike ped plan as a crucial piece, because we've got the west portion of Cascade that was all redesigned. And so the east portion was intended to be designed in a similar fashion, but again, very expensive project. So we're trying to think about how we can address the most pressing needs there. While, if the roadway is still in good condition, maybe that doesn't get touched, but we really think about how to get safe crossings, but then once you get to that north side, how do you get east and west over there? So that is something that we have identified as a potential capital improvement project. Still also kind of trying to figure out how do we pull together funding, who might our partners be, what resources can we bring to that?
I'm happy to see the effort towards the Division Street crossings, because in the neighborhood that I'm in, that's where Wasson connects to Division could be sketchy for pedestrians. So I'm hoping that's what specifically is
Yes.
part of that.
Yep.
What's in scope. And then also on the DeSanctis side down there, when I bicycle and cross and see how things are there, I'm glad that that's on the list as well. So good, thank you. I think there's a lot of thoughtful effort here, and I think it contributes to the quality of life that we have here in River Falls. And so I appreciate your efforts and your staff. So anybody else have any questions?
I guess I would ask too, with all the federal stuff going on in terms of grants and funding and all those things, has that affected any of our current grants or projects, like the National Park Service assistance, or has that been affected by what's going on with the federal government?
So far, it hasn't. The last couple of months, there's been some uncertainty, and so we've been in close communication with our partners to see how things are going, but so far, so good. We've heard that we should proceed with the projects we've got.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thanks, Emily. Well, the last item on the agenda for this evening is adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.